Hey, Ted, I want to give you the backdrop. Yeah, you mentioned this store. This is a Century on the northwest side. It is now closed. People still been showing up today. Surprised to see the sign. They are now closed. So let's say you live in one of these houses in the neighborhood across the street. You still have options for groceries, but you'd have to drive 1.3 miles. That's about 5 minutes in the car if you have a car. But if you have to walk, that's about 30 minutes.
Store in Milwaukee will close in days, which could be devastating to people in need of access to fresh food.
And so signs inside the Aldi at Sherman and Custer say its last day is Sunday. Now, earlier this week, Sherman Park Grocery Store at Sherman and Fond du Lac told 12 News they are on the verge of closing as well. And you might remember back in July, Pick and Save at 35th and North closed its doors.
I come once or twice a week. This is a quick stop shop for me.
Shoppers at Aldi at Sherman and Hopkins Friday greeted with a sign on the door announcing it'll close Sunday.
I was like, oh no. Wow, what are we going to do?
When the Century at 64th and Silver Spring opened less than 3 years ago.
This Century on Silver Spring and 64th is now closed. In January, the Aldi near Sherman and Custer boarded up. And last year, the Pick and Save near 35th and North also shut down.
Oh, about 15 or 20 minutes away.
Yeah, we have to go all the way over, either the east side or Brown Deer.
Many shoppers walking to and from the grocery.
A lot of the people in this area probably do not have vehicles to travel. So having something in walking distance is very important.
It's devastating to that neighborhood. I don't have any major grocery store chain in my district anymore.
It was hailed as a victory for the city and the neighborhood without a grocery store within a mile, known as a food desert.
It's saddening to see that they're going to close.
State Representative Russell Goodwin, who represents parts of Northwest Milwaukee, tells me he's worried this problem is spreading.
It's not something that the government can fix alone, and it's not something that nonprofits can fix alone, but it's something that we have to work on fixing together. If leadership doesn't get bold enough, Milwaukee's going to be left behind.
It was the one that people in my district went to. We've already been hit by 2 Walgreens closures and a CVS closure in the district.
Now I got to go elsewhere. I don't know where I got to go.
How important is having fresh food and things like that for a neighborhood?
Real important, man, because there's a lot of little ones out here.
Even if our store, God forbid, closes, the need goes nowhere.
Which would widen the North Side's food desert, which is defined by the USDA as an area where a significant number of residents live more than a mile from a major store.
That's bad. That's bad. I mean, this is a community where people need to, they need to keep this store open because people got to go a long way to travel to go to another store.
This former Kohl's grocery store has changed grocery vendors at least 4 times in the last 20 years, lending to concern that in even more challenging times for retail, finding replacement could be very difficult.
That sort of shakeup in the economy is something that I think a lot of folks, whether you're a consumer or whether you are a retailer, a brick and mortar one, are trying to grapple with. So we're constantly trying to work to find ways in order to support, businesses on the ground, because that's what folks need in Milwaukee.
How many grocery deserts are we going to cover? Right? Do you feel like this is just Groundhog Day? What do you have? Well, you've got a whole bunch of stores, whether they're grocery stores, whether they're mini marts, whether they are CVS, Walgreens, Aldi, whatever, closing down in communities that continually pickpocket them. And there are massive safety issues, not only in the stores, but in the stores' restrooms, in the parking lots. I mean, it's an absolute you-know-what show. And yet nobody wants to address those issues. Why are all the grocery stores closing down? Well, there's been a change up in the mechanics of how, the razor thin profit margin. And then you've got the pandemic. We blame a lot on the pandemic. Bottom line is, and then every now and then you'll see an article that will come right out and say it. You know what? Profits ain't there because the people are shoplifting. And those who are shoplifting are creating some massive safety concerns. You got a lot of whacked out nut jobs running around stealing from the stores. Everybody knows it. And leadership in these big corporations, whether it's Aldi or CVS or Walgreens or, Trader Joe's, wherever, it's an issue of if you have your employees, if you have your customers, if you have your management, you have your ownership, and they feel like their lives are in danger when they go to do this grocery shopping experience. And on top of that, if there's no money in it, closed. That's what's going on. But all that's reported, and we'll take a look. I mean, you just saw some of the video. All that's typically reported is, oh my gosh, this is an underserved area already. We can't afford another closure, which I get. I understand. These closures are happening in the lower socioeconomic areas because they're being pickpocketed from the inside out. And you've got safety issues because you got a bunch of nut jobs running around that leadership says, yep, it's okay. Do your drugs. It's all good. Get out there, Tiger. Let's do another shoplifting event again. Instead of enforcing the law, instead of local leadership enforcing the law and having their prosecutors prosecute and then having judges actually incarcerate people. We're not doing that anymore. So what does corporate do? Corporate says, closed. They go right to closed. Right to closed. I mean, I was just watching, footage. I'm not sure if it'll make this video. Watching footage of, a council person saying, I wish Aldi would have told me because then I would have reached out to see if there's something we can do. When Aldi is already saying that we're closing the store, it's game over. It's done. That decision was made oftentimes years prior. They're just looking at the data going, well, is there any hope for this bad boy? No, there's not. Okay, let's close her down. Let's close her down and say, hey, we have really enjoyed servicing this community here. We understand the impact that this has on the community in general. You guys are going to have to walk 10 miles uphill both ways to go to, your new grocery store in 6 inches of snow. And literally in Milwaukee, that's true. The uphill part is just nonsense. But this is happening because you don't have leadership that is willing to address the real situation, which is if these stores were, number one, making money and they didn't have the safety issues, they'd still be open because why would they shut them down? But you've got these combo of factors and it's the safety issues, it's the shoplifting that nobody wants to talk about. If you've got other stores in the area that aren't as bad shoplifting wise, you're going to keep those open because, you don't want store security absolutely getting hassled by Looney Tune people coming in and stealing a dozen steaks at a time to go front their fentanyl problem. But in reality, that is what's going on. And then you see these poor consumers who aren't fentanyl addicts. And they're like, I got to go so far to get my groceries now. And those are the people that you honestly feel bad for. The elderly, those who can't get around, handicapped people, blind people, whatever. Single moms with a bunch of kids that are just trying to work out how to survive, right? Those folks, this impacts directly. And those are not typically the people that are stealing from said store. No, it's the other people. It's the whacked out drug addicts that know they can just walk into a grocery store, steal a bunch of stuff, and then go find their local open air drug market and sell it there. So Mayor Johnson, not Let's Go Brandon Johnson, but Mayor Johnson of Milwaukee, he joined grocers and city leaders to discuss the city's role in addressing food deserts. Well, I watched that video. I was going to have you watch it with me, but it was so boring that I thought there is no way I can do that to you nice people. You guys tuned into my video and now I'm going to show you some boring nonsense. No, we're not doing that. It was just a bunch of babble. It was a bunch of, and it just always leaves me with, why don't you address the root cause of this, which is grocery stores in these communities, they can't really stick around because they can't seem to make a profit. And what your constituents are doing to these stores doesn't really help in a positive manner towards keeping these stores. Because, you know how you can kind of work that out? You don't see this happening in wealthy communities where there's no grocery store deserts. It's not a thing. It's because people aren't, hammering on one another in the parking lot over their next drug fix. You this whole notion. One of the reasons that I am now podcasting versus, doing the whole appraisal gig or the real estate sales gig is because it came down to, in my opinion, in the city of Seattle, it's so much easier to sell a home in a community that values public safety versus one that doesn't. And Seattle, for the most part, does not cherish public safety, could not care less. In fact, they are so boneheaded in Seattle that, defund police, is a genius, anti-ICE, literally just the most harebrained things you can do. And then you wonder why grocery stores in your community close, and they don't close in ones where they respect law enforcement. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not that hard of an equation to work out. 1 + 1 does equal 2. 2 + 2 does equal 4. No matter what, the libtards on the left want to convince you that men can have babies, boys need tampons, and, just a bunch of gibberish that doesn't make any sense. In real estate terms, if you don't have a strong sense of public safety, it's going to be harder to sell homes in those communities. And that's why I'm doing the YouTube gig, is because I want to focus on that. Hey, what are things that make it harder to sell your home? Well, when you have a community that, shoplifting's okay, it's all right, it's accepted, that has an impact. I'm reading for you that impact today. Mayor Johnson was joined by people in the food business and representatives from the Century Food Store. Grocery store closures continue to be a problem across the city. It's the 7th one. So what's going on? What is happening? Thin margins? Why are they staying open in other cities? Yeah. We have been leveraging partnerships in order to stem the current wave of closures. And this is not just Milwaukee. This is happening all over the United States. Big corporate is pulling back. Big corporate pulled back. Kroger pulled back in my community here in Redmond, Washington, Microsoft country. Had so many people shoplifting at the local Fred Meyer that they said, yep, we don't really need that store anymore. It doesn't really fit our model, and it's being robbed blind, and there's safety issues, therefore closed. Goes just like that, right? Because the whole profit thing, that's a little bit of it. But, if that were the case, they'd be pointing at that 100%. Century Foods, located near 64th Street in Silver Spring, has alerted customers store will be closing. Here we got Century Foods. We got Aldi. Pick and save, pick and save, pick and save, pick and save, pick and save. Just done. Gone. Food desert left. This is what happens when you have justice reform as one of your core principles. Let's be honest. That's what's going on. Now, Milwaukee is a Democrat-run city. You've got areas in Wisconsin that are Republican-run. But Milwaukee specifically, you're watching what happens when you don't have a strong sense of public safety. You got a whole bunch of you got shenanigans going on. Let's use an old school term, shenanigans. Century Foods closure follows other recent grocery shutdowns. Last summer, Pick and Save announced the closure of 5 locations county-wide, including one on the north side. There we go. Why food deserts are growing in Milwaukee, what leaders say needs to change. That's the crazy thing, right? That is what is absolutely nuts and out of control, is that there is very little that leadership can do to stem the flow of these grocery stores because it's rooted in such core principles within a community, such as shoplifting's okay. You can shoplift because you can get away with it. Even if you get busted, if you're shoplifting under a certain amount, they're not going to prosecute you and no judge is going to incarcerate you. That is a known quantity. And now you've got things like profit margins that are so razor thin that companies are saying, well, we flat out can't afford to do this. And even if a city begs them, they're going to close the store down because that is their best option. Literally closing the store down and saying, no, we're done, is their best option. It's, it's cause and effect. It's cause and effect. It's like if you've got a whole bunch of just absolute criminal nut jobs running around the downtown core of downtown, say, Portland. There's cause and effect with nobody wanting to run their business there, people not wanting to live in the condo projects in your downtown core, nobody able to keep a business open. And it has that massive impact. And same thing with grocery stores and communities where things just aren't really operating correctly. But nobody wants to say the quiet part out loud, because then you'd have to admit there really isn't a viable option to turn this around without some major, major core principles of the constituents of these areas making huge changes, like teaching your kids you can't shoplift, right? Hey, you shoplift, you might go to jail. Something as simple as that. Something as simple as that. And in other communities where that is taught, you don't have the store closures. It's weird. It's strange. It's crazy. It's predictable. Because if these big corporations were making money, even if the small businesses were making money, they wouldn't close down. They'd stay open. That's what they're there to do, is to make some money. Make that paper, right? Here's the standard rundown. Deepening the crisis. Pick and Save's closing creates community uproar. Okay, yep. And then you got, it's more than a grocery store to its constituents. Okay, I understood that. Will a new store fill the void? Well, it's the 5th store to close down at this location, but let's try it again with the same circumstances, and we'll see what happens. It's kind of like marrying that same woman that you've already divorced 4 times and hoping the 5th is going to be the charm. Hey, this should work out. I'm really in love with this gal this time. It's going to go fine. It's going to go great, right? Will a new store fill the void? What's next? Well, we're seeing what's next. Store closed. New one opens up. Store will close. Because the underlying, theme, the underlying circumstances, unless those are changed, guess what? The food desert's going to get worse. And until people have actual conversations regarding that, good luck with that. You know where we're hearing conversations about this? New York City, Seattle. You know why? Because Democrat socialists know that businesses are going to fail under Democrat socialist rule. And as a result, you will have more and more grocery store closures because they run on such thin margins. And when people rip them off and have all kinds of crazy stuff, they do crazy stuff in the restrooms, a little bit of liability in there, and they're not making any money, closed. So Seattle and New York City are literally talking about city-run grocery stores because they can't keep the ones based on capitalism open. So let's go ahead and fund a grocery store because this is going to work out just great. Kansas City, closing city-run grocery stores, right? That's how well that worked out. This has never worked out well when you have a city that doesn't know how to run a business, what happens? That business gets run into the ground, and then they realize we're spending too much of the taxpayers' money on wasteful options. Let's close this bad boy down. Then you're in the exact same position of when big corporate closes the grocery stores down. Until you get to some of those root issues, it'll never work. Just how it is. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. Love to have you subscribe. Hit that notification bell. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.